Hello, everybody. Welcome to Module 2. I'm going to do Chapter 4 in this video. You can see this inside your course. It talks about what we'll be covering in Module 2. We do have an assignment, Module 2 memo with project scope statement. If anybody's interested in being a project manager, I'm sharing this slide from the Occupational Outlook Handbook. It's pretty good. It's 7% faster than the average salary for 2024 was $100,750 per year. All that's required is a bachelor's degree. Now, you may not start at that $100,000 figure, but I'd eventually get there. Chapter 4 Summary. Project Scope, Project Charter. You have a work breakdown structure, coding. All that means is when you have more than one work breakdown structure, you'll start with the number 1 and number your work breakdown structures in consecutive order. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. It just helps you when you're working in other parts of the project management. We have a responsibility matrix or RACI chart and a project communication plan. Chapter 4 Objectives. I'll give you a minute to glance at those. And our first thing is the project scope statement. We have to write a project scope statement in Module 2. Perhaps you've never done one. I've found several sources that will help you succeed. We're going to be using APA 7th edition formatting. One thing that's included in the APA 7th edition formatting is headings. Headings are descriptive of the information that follows. Recommended headings for the project scope statement are shown on this slide. Your name, the date, project manager. When you do a project name, be as creative as you wish. You can always change it. Project manager, that's you. Project scope description, acceptance criteria, deliverable, project exclusions. So not only are we going to say what's included in the project scope, but also what is excluded. So we have to show both sides. Constraints we'll operate under, as well as assumptions. A well-prepared project scope document is the cornerstone of a successful project. Did you know that approximately 75% of the projects fail? That gives you only 1 in 4 chances of having a successful project. And one of the key steps that you have to take is to write a project scope statement. The scope statement will govern what you do during your whole project. So you want to try to make it as strong and as descriptive as possible. We have some templates. Here's the first one. This is from Project Manager. Let's take a minute and go through each part. We come up with a project name. Again, the project name can change. Project Manager, that will be you, and the date. No later than the date it's due, right? Justification, a brief explanation of a need and how the project will fulfill that need. Then we get into the scope description. We want to include both what's in scope as well as what's out of scope. Make a list of the functionalities that is within the scope. And then in the next box, make a list of functionalities that is outside the scope. Then we're going to go down to the business objectives. Use SMART goals: specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and timely. If you've never written a SMART goal before, please let me know. I'll make a presentation based on that. The next category, project deliverables. Make a list of the deliverables that you will produce during this project. And when you have a copy of this template, you will find 2 hyperlinks. The first one is download our free work breakdown structure for Excel. So I will give that to you today. We're still continuing with the project scope. We have to state what's included as well as what's excluded. So in this box, you would write the items that are not, or they're out of scope. The next thing, your constraints. What limitations do you have in terms of time, cost, scope, risk, resources, and other constraints? The next box are your assumptions. Help stakeholders know what resources are going to be required to fulfill the project. And finally, a cost estimate. You don't necessarily have to include the cost estimate in Module 2, but in Module 5, you will be completing a budget. And then you have your second link, download a free project budget template for Excel. Here is a project scope checklist. These are just some of the things that you want to include. The purpose, the deliverables, the scope boundaries, what are included and what are not included. Your assumptions, constraints, who will your stakeholders be? Your acceptance criteria. Remember, we're using SMART goals and objectives. Your milestones, your work breakdown structure, timeline, and budget. Now, I want to play this video because she does a complete walkthrough the project scope statement.
Need to create a project scope statement and you just don't know where to start? Well, by the end of this video, I'm going to give you my simple strategy on how to create the perfect project scope statement along with the project scope statement example. Now, if you want to master your next project, you need to grab my cheat sheet and learn why projects fail and how to avoid them. I'll tell you how to get that soon. Hi, if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. For the best project management and career advice, subscribe to my channel and a new video is coming to you every Wednesday. The scope statement secret. Okay, before we can even jump into scope statements for projects, we need to really understand why it's a secret. Secret is, it is the most critical aspect of your project. It kicks you off so that you know exactly what it is you're going to be doing. Now, in the perfect world, when you got the knock on the door saying you got this project, you would have gotten your scope statement from your sponsor. But the reality is, in business, that rarely happens. In fact, I've never had that happen to me. So as a project manager, it becomes really important that you ensure you get a really good scope statement. Now, what I do is I actually use this template that I actually taken from my own course, Slay Project Management. You can get information on it under this YouTube video in the link below. But the template itself is going to guide you as to what it is you need to do. So let's get to that step one. Section 1 of the project scope statement, project information. So this is where you start off with the project name and, more importantly, the project justification or background information. These two things go hand in hand. So you're really asking the question in this section, why are we doing this project? This becomes really important because it lets people know that background information so they understand why they're doing what they're doing. Now, I have an example for you for this too, but before I jump into the example, I want to give you some context. So this is an actual project that we at Cornerstone Dynamics, my consulting firm, did way back when. And it was in relationship to a client who did a vision statement activity, and they wanted to do something even more with the rest of their department. So as a result of that, we came up with an idea, why not do a theme song in relationship to their vision statement? Now, I never did one before, and so as a result of doing a theme song, they also wanted a music video, so we had to test it out. So this is what this project is all about. So let me share with you, based on my template, the actual name and the scope and the justification around it so you understand what you put in that. Okay, so the name that we had was CSD Beta Music Video. I know, it's not exactly creative, but it's a scope statement. This can always change, so don't worry about it. And the project justification is the client requested to have a theme song created for their department vision statement and wanted to include the rest of the department by creating a theme song and making a music video. To test out how to do this in an efficient way, CSD created their own theme song and will be testing out the music video concept. So that's what this project was. It really was a beta test for Cornerstone and the suppliers we were using to make sure we understood how to go about it effectively and efficiently and really ensure that there was some good cost savings for our client. Section 2, scope statement and focus. This is the heart of your template. So your scope statement is just that. What is the summary of what it is that you're trying to do? In essence, what are you delivering? And then when it comes to the focus, we talk about what's in and what's out. Now, some people may not think that this is important, but in actuality, it is very important because your scope statement is a generalized statement, which is specific. It's like a SMART statement. It's specific, it's measurable, it's timeline. I can't remember what the other R's are, what the R is and the other measurable. Anyway, if you look it up, you can find it. But that all being said, the ins and outs become really helpful because it gives you even greater clarity with what exactly you're going to be doing and not doing and can eliminate some assumptions. So I want to read to you the actual scope statement we had for our project along with the ins and outs. So the scope statement was to beta test the process of creation of a music video for the client and to understand the details needed to make it successful and offer it as an additional CSD offering by the end of Q4. So we were very specific. We knew exactly what we needed to do, what we were going to be delivering on. Now, in regards to the focus, this becomes really important for us. So let me read to you what was in focus. In focus was instrumental track, recording at a studio, filming of the event, music video creation, standardizing the process. This is really important because if I didn't make that clear in the in focus, my suppliers and other vendors wouldn't be thinking of, oh, we got to make this repeatable so that we can offer a really good product. Now, what was out of focus? Well, the actual theme song, because we've created it, so we didn't have to do that. So it was already pre-created, so we weren't worried about redoing that. And some other elements were not. What was out of focus was adding any additional elements outside of the agreement that I had with my suppliers and making any creative changes without Cornerstone Dynamics permission. So that became important because you can only imagine creative vendors, they're used to probably a lot of creative freedom, and I needed them to be very specific because we were testing out a way of working. So that was a scope statement and the ins and outs, which really kept everything tight. Section 3, supporting details. This is where we now talk about overall high-level project timelines, the actual deliverables, and assumptions. So Why is it that we're even doing a high-level timeline here? Because a lot of times you have to connect with your sponsor, a senior executive who's like, oh my goodness, we've got this great initiative, we want you to lead it. You need to find out from them what is their thought process on what this is, on when it's going to get done. I find a lot of times the reality of senior executives on when they think things are going to get done, or the time frame that they give a project for, and the reality of doing it are night and day. So having this information now is very critical, because when you get into the planning stage, you're going to see whether or not you can accomplish it with what they think it should be accomplished in. So this becomes really important. It's an awesome negotiation tool. It's going to allow you to ensure that you're not constantly under the gun or pressure to be delivering on something that's really unrealistic. The deliverable itself, you just want clarity. Even though your scope statement itself did talk about the deliverable, you just want to be very specific. At the end of this, what are you physically getting? What am I giving you? Let's just lay that out in a 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how much it is. And assumptions, is there any assumption outside of the things that you kind of called out in the ins and the outs in the focus section that you just really need to highlight? So by doing that, it just gives a little more meat to your scope statement template. Now, let me share with you what we did on this project. So from a timing perspective, we started it in June and we wanted to have it done by December 14th. Now, in regards to deliverables, there were two very specific things. We had a music video that we wanted to deliver on, which is Cornerstone Dynamics. And then we also wanted to have standard ways of working, standard, I call them processes. So we wanted to standardize that so every single person knew exactly what they were going to do. And it didn't matter who the client was, it was going to give us the same good quality video. And last but not least, we did have some assumptions. So some of those assumptions were my main facilitator, who is a musician, who was helping us with the video, was a live musician, was in a band. So could be called on tour or on some sort of promotional launch that he had to go on. So we had to make sure that he had a backup. I couldn't just assume he was going to have a backup. I needed to really call it out. Another one as well as is that all vendors were working in the spirit of standardization so that we can be competitive for the client. And last but not least, we had structured ways of working to ensure, again, as I said earlier on, that we were providing an awesome quality product at a reasonable cost. So that call out was very clear from day one with all the players. And now for the last section, section 4, key people. This is where you're going to highlight who you think needs to be part of the project. It not necessarily means that whoever you list on here is the final list, because a lot of times when you get into project planning, you may have to add people or switch them up. Now, an example here would be, this is where you would have your steering committees, your sponsors, project manager, even the people who are going to be on the project. And for us, we had Adam, who was our musician and video facilitator, Chris, our videographer and producer. We had Robin and Justin, who were part of the actual music studio and recording engineer. And then we had, of course, our talent, which was my team. Mike, Karina, Heather, myself, and some other individuals too. So it was a lot of fun. Now, if you're interested in actually checking out this video, please, I have the link under this YouTube video. You can go check it out. Now that you know how to create a project scope statement, your projects are going to sing. Yay, I'm so happy for you. Now, what I would like for you to do is go to the link below under this YouTube video and grab this, because if you're already into making sure that you are having awesome project scope statements, you need to know what are the things that are going to trip you up and create project failure. And I have all the answers in here for you, so please check it out. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share it with everybody that you know. I would love to hear from you. If you have any stories on project scope statements, or if you have a scope statement you want to share with me, please put it in the comment below. Until the next video, see ya. Need to create.
So you can see that I'm going to be giving you a copy of the template that she was just referencing. Go step by step. Purpose of the project, the scope. When you talk about the scope, we want to make sure we identify what's inside scope as well as what's outside of scope. Project deliverables, what will they receive when you are done with this? Your assumptions and your constraints. Remember, we must use SMART goals. They allow us to measure our success. SMART is the acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Like she said on the video, if you're not sure what SMART goals are, please reach out to me. Next thing we're going to talk about is scope creep. This happens when your scope statement is not specific. So what is scope creep? According to the Project Management Institute, this is the definition of scope creep: unauthorized additions to a project's scope. Now, everybody's going to try to push more and more and more to add these items to your project, but you have to draw the line. You have a very specific project scope statement. That's why you list all the ins and the outs and complete all the other boxes. Scope versus scope creep. On the left-hand side, tells you what's included in the scope. And then on the right, what isn't? Adding features and functionality without addressing the effects on time, cost, and resources, or without customer approval. Change on projects is inevitable, so the possibility for scope creep is inevitable. Why does scope creep occur? There's 5 primary causes of scope creep. First, unclear project objectives. You did not write SMART goals. If you don't write SMART goals, what happens? How to prevent it?
I'm Jennifer Witt, Director of ProjectManager.com. Well, welcome to our whiteboard session today on what is a work breakdown structure. So a lot of times we get questions from the forum and other sources of people calling in really trying to understand what the work breakdown structure is. And there's so much confusion out there because it gets tied into maybe a software tool or other aspects, and people can't determine what's the difference between that and a schedule and other parts of the project. So I want to take the time out on this whiteboard session just to clarify what the work breakdown structure is. Well, you know me, I'm big on terms, and I like to be clear and go forward on a real definition of terms. So a lot of times you'll see me on the whiteboard sessions reference my good friend Google. Well, in this case, I'm referencing a guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge by PMI, and this specifically is the 4th edition. You can reference other project management sources of your own that you may use and prefer instead, but this is mine. So what PMI and the Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, the PMBOK guide, says a work breakdown structure is a deliverable-oriented hierarchical decomposition, so we're breaking something apart, of the work to be executed by the team to accomplish the project objectives and create the required deliverables. Many times I see the teams get confused because they lose essence of why are we doing this project? And specifically, the reason we're doing a project is to produce the deliverables. So this is a very important piece. And if you can create a work breakdown structure from the beginning and identify the deliverables being produced when, then a picture truly is worth 1,000 words for not only you, the project manager, but your team. It sets the vision again for the project objectives. So let's take a look at the purpose. The purpose, again, is to organize and define the total scope. So the scope is comprised of the deliverables. So this hierarchical decomposition of the work, it looks like this. Here's a graphical picture. So here's just generically, you can take this generic hierarchical structure and begin breaking it down for your own. So here's a project, and in this specific one, you may work on projects that include phases. So there may be a phase 1, phase 2, or other multiple phases. This one has 2 phases and a deliverable, a main high-level deliverable produced. And this also has sub-projects. So this also can include sub-projects that are broken down as well. But if you look at phase 1 and break down this has 2 deliverables beneath the phase. So it's producing 2 main deliverables. And so we look at what's the work required to produce these deliverables. So we keep breaking it down. We break it down to the work to be executed. So work is executed by work packages. So this deliverable 1 is broken down to other sub-deliverables, and which are broken down eventually to work packages. And remember, your team members are completing work packages that produce these deliverables. And again, this can continue to be broken down. But this simply is a work breakdown structure. I think it's very important to understand the definition and the structure, the purpose, and how we do this. Truly, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I hope this one helps you for your teams and your projects. At ProjectManager.com, we believe firmly in work breakdown structures and that they do and can create a picture that's worth 1,000 words for you and your team. So if you need a tool that can help you decompose.
Right. Next thing we have to work on is the communication plan. Successful projects are all about people. Shows how you will inform your project team and stakeholders. Information that will be included in the communication plan. Looking at the table, we can see the ID, just a number you use, then the stakeholder, Information. How will you communicate with them? How often will you communicate with them? Who will share the information? Are there any assumptions? And are there any constraints? This is just one table format that you could use to plan your communication plan. Remember, those who fail to plan to fail. Another constraint, ineffective change control processes. You need a formal process to manage change. Remember, some of the people are going to try to add more information. They're trying to expand your scope. This is why you created the project scope statement. You're trying to keep them focused on what your intent is. Don't allow them to come in and start making requested changes. When that happens, we need to stop, form a plan, share it with our stakeholders, and see if this will work. If it does, it might have an impact on your time, when you'll be able to deliver it, your objectives. Now, you just really have to take your time if your person is requesting changes. We want to use a structured change control process.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Witt, Director of ProjectManager.com. Well, welcome to our whiteboard session today on how to control change requests in a project. What happens from time to time is when changes start occurring on a project or throughout the project, they can begin coming in so quickly from all different directions, and many times it's hard for the project manager to keep track of it all. So without a good, clear process and knowing how the process works, it's really easy to lose control quickly. So let's talk about how to do this effectively. So again, what we're talking about is we're talking about the components of the triple constraint. So the triple constraint has to do with the scope, which are the deliverables, the cost or the budget, the time or the schedule, and the quality. And this is all incorporated in the baseline project plan. So what happens throughout the project is we start with or begin with the baseline project plan. Some kind of event occurs, could be an issue, it could be a risk, could be a federal mandate that the company has to comply with, it could be a natural disaster causing, impacting different components of the project. You could discover throughout the project a new requirement, or it could be just simply a request from the business owners, the stakeholders, vendor partners, hey, while you're doing this, would it be reasonable to incorporate this change? So what happens is some event occurs, you try to capture it. So a change request is made, so it identifies the change. You try to evaluate what would the impact be if we had this change, what is it, and what is the impact to the other components of the triple constraint, and what is the recommendation that we would make for that change. So that is all incorporated, captured, documented in our change request log. So again, the change request log captures all of the changes that are made or submitted throughout the project. So you want to capture all the different changes, what are the descriptions, what was the date that the change was submitted, what priority, and again capturing the impact. So that information is captured, and periodically, depending upon the requirements in the project management plan, periodically the Change Control Board has scheduled meetings to review this. So the Change Control Board members take these change requests, they review them, they analyze them, they evaluate them, and they approve them, yes or no. So once they approve the change, then those changes are incorporated into the project plan. And very important to re-baseline the project plan. On several of our whiteboard sessions, I continually say that the difference between a failed or successful project can simply be Did we go back and re-baseline the plan? Because if the Change Control Board approves the changes and that impacts the project, then it's authorization to go back and re-baseline the project plan. And after we re-baseline the project plan, it's important to execute the changes that have been incorporated into the plan. So these are some of the items, this is the process, some of the helpful tips to help control change requests in the project. If you need a tool that can help you control the change request on your project, then sign up for our software now at projectmanager.com.
5 steps of a change control process. A change is requested. The change is evaluated. The change is approved or denied. The change is implemented. The change request is closed. You know, at different times, people might say, use software. Well, that's true. There's several types of software out there that you could use if you had the money, which you probably don't right now because you're in school. But if you had the money, you could buy some project software, which would really streamline your process. Scope creep. Why does that happen? Here's number 4 and 5. Lack of stakeholder involvement. I encourage you to get all people involved at a very early stage of the development of your project. Let them take part ownership. They will help you help the project succeed. The last one, unrealistic timelines. Be patient. Take everything into account. Your assumptions, your requirements, the fact that it just changed. Why prioritize project constraints? Projects do operate under constraints. We just talked about the project management triangle. When one thing changes, the other 2 may be affected. And there's your triangle: time, cost, scope, and quality in the middle.
The triple constraint theory may sound a little bit complex, but I'm letting you know it really isn't. And in this video, I'm going to share with you all about project management triple constraint so that you can be awesome at your projects. And as a side note, I got some really good news for you. I have something for you at the end of this video. If you wait to the end, I'm going to give you a checklist, a way to get a checklist that has some amazing things that if you're here for triple constraint, you're definitely going to want this as well. Hi, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Adriana Girdler, and you have landed on the best project management channel out there. That is Practical Project Management. I'm telling you everything that you need to know. I would love if you consider subscribing, as it helps our community grow and tells YouTube we're doing a good job. Now, on that note, if you're interested about project management triple constraints, let's get to it. Understanding the triple constraint theory. This is also known as a project management triangle. So the constraint or the triangle is really based on 3 core elements: scope, time, and budget. And they're all dependent upon each other. You can't change one without having impact to the other one. So if you take a look at your time and it is the constraint and you want to make some shifts, then you're going to have to take a look at budget and scope in order to help ensure that your time stays at a constraint. So let's go into it a little bit deeper so we can understand each one. Scope. Scope is exactly what your project is going to be doing. It encompasses all the activity that you've agreed upon through a scope statement. That here's what our project is all about, and here are the things that are in scope, and here are the things that are out of scope, because it becomes very clear for you and your team and your stakeholders and your customers, people you're delivering to, that everyone is aligned on the same page. This becomes really important because it's so easy to have scope creep. And if you have scope creep, that means you're changing up scope, which is going to have impact on your triple constraints. So it's all tied in. So scope is really what your project is going to be doing, what's in and out, and that everyone is on the same page. Time. Well, this seems pretty straightforward. It's how long your project is going to take. It's the duration of your project for, by the way, all those scope items that we just said, that's in and out. How long is it going to take for you to complete your project from a timing perspective? So your duration, understanding dependencies, understanding how everything is working together from an overarching perspective, if you're going to be looking at it from high milestones, even to when the more detailed, maybe you have something that's going to be executed and you want to get into the weeds. Your time becomes very important because you have, with your scope, an expectation that you're going to be delivering at a certain time. So you know now when you start off your project exactly what it is that you have to deliver through scope and your time, how long you have to do it. So this becomes really important. Now these two are really becoming close together. So if your time is thrown off, then your scope may get thrown off, and vice versa. If your scope gets thrown off for whatever reason, added to, deleted, it does have impact on your time. All right, if you're liking the content so far and is resonating with you, please hit that like button, subscribe. It tells YouTube we're doing a good job. Budget. All right, this is now how much is it going to cost for you to execute on the scope of your project within the timeline that you have set aside for it. So budgets can be very simple, like direct cost, indirect costs. So some of those direct costs may be if you're installing a packaging line, let's say. The direct cost is going to be the cost of the equipment that you're purchasing. Some indirect costs may be you have a new place where you're installing the equipment and it's leased land. Those indirect costs is the lease that you're going to be renewing on a yearly basis. It's indirect. It's not something that the project has to do, but it's going to indirectly impact the cost of the project, and you have to consider those things. So budget now becomes important because if your scope changes or your time changes, then you may have to look to budget in order to help shift those priorities and ensure that you can deliver on what you're supposed to deliver depending on the constraint that you chose. How do you manage triple constraints? This becomes really important, and I can't stress enough that this is something you do at the beginning of your project because you want to lock this down and get a very clear understanding as to what those constraints are between time, scope, and budget. Now, one of the techniques or templates that you can use, something that I have in my Slay course, is a priority matrix. This is critical because a priority matrix basically says of your scope, time, and budget, which one is a constraint that is immovable, which one is it that you're going to optimize it. Ideally, you don't want to move, but if you have to, you will. And the third and last is acceptance. If you have to move it to keep your constraint a constraint, then you're going to accept to use this particular scope, time, or budget, however you chose, to be that one that you're going to be able to work with. This becomes important, and you want approval at the beginning of your project because as you move forward and things unfold and things happen and you're going to have risks that unfold, you do not want to be deciding at that point in time what your constraints are. Do it at the beginning, and it's going to guide you to make decisions and really help you with the ease of managing through difficult terrain when your project hits those bumpy places in the road. And if you're looking for more information on how exactly to create a priority matrix, well then tune in to next week's video because I have a video just on that. Now that you know all about project management, triple constraints, you now need to know about this. 6 things to keep your project successful and make sure that they stays really aligned to everything that you put together. Guess what? Free for you. Get it? Link under this video. I'm telling you, it's a no-brainer. On that note, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Cost priority. Focus to stay on budget. Focus to stay in line with your scope. You may compromise performance for extended timelines. It's useful in fixed budget or resource-limited projects. An example would be nonprofit campaign with limited funding. What's your time priority? Meeting deadlines is key. Give yourself enough time when you're writing that project statement to include the deadlines. Is it a seasonal project? It may reduce the amount of time you have to prepare your deliverables. Do you have to increase your costs or reduce scope? Most people don't like to see a price increase while you're working. So try to be as specific as possible when you're writing your scope statement. Performance priority. You want to promote quality. You want to be able to be available and selected for other projects. Time, cost. When do we have to have it in? Is that a firm deadline? In some cases, it might be. Why should we prioritize? Ensures alignment with your stakeholders and their expectations. It helps you make informed decisions. So if somebody asks you to make changes, improves risk management and project outcomes. Remember that triangle. Time. What are the other two? Cost. Quality is in the center. So they recommend that we do a work breakdown structure, or a WBS. It must be developed so that each successful level in the hierarchy represents an increasing detailed definition of the project. Recall in that last video, the organization structure. Project starts at the top, break the project down to parts, break those parts into other parts. So it's just like an organization chart. This is an example of a work breakout schedule. Level 1, your title. Level 2, the different parts. Pretty global still. Level 3, and there's a level 4. So there's 4 levels of a work breakdown. In fact, some people might say there's 5 levels of a work breakout structure, but we're going to use 4 levels. Level 1 was the project title. Level 2 are your major deliverables. Level 3 are your sub-deliverables. And level 4 are your work packages. Let's move back for a second. Again, you see level 1, level 2, level 3. We don't have the level 4 created yet. But see how it starts global and just comes down, getting smaller and smaller, providing more detail. And why have it? It helps you scope, how you organize your task, who's responsible for it, what kind of resources might you need, and give us your best guess cost estimate. WBS may be shown towards the database. Start with your planning tool. Start monitoring your progress. Use your SMART goals that you established back in your project statement. It's measurable because we use SMART goals: specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time-bound. Benefits of using a work breakout structure. It improves communication, gives you better control, keeps things visible so people know what you're doing and who's doing it. And it helps us to generate reports. We may have to generate reports a couple times throughout the whole development. And here's another work breakout. And this one, we have a video for it.
Are you confused about work breakdown structure and want to know how it works? By the end of this video, I'm going to teach you all about work breakdown structure in project management. And if you want to be a project manager rock star, well then wait till the end of this video because I'm going to give you an amazing download that's going to give you some awesome tips on how to ensure your projects don't fail. Hi, if you're new here, welcome. For the best career and project management advice, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell button, and a brand new video is going to come to you every Wednesday. As someone who has created many work breakdown structures for different industries, I can tell you the solid benefit of having a really good WBS for project success. So I'm going to teach you today what it is, why you need one, and an example too. So if you're excited about this, like this video, and let's get to it. So what is a WBS? No, it is not work bull bleep. Okay, it's not that. It actually is an acronym for work breakdown structure. And it's like an organizational hierarchical chart if I were to do a comparison. What you really want to do is you want to take a deliverable and you want to break it down into manageable chunks. And that's what the WBS does for you. It's an awesome technique whenever you need to take something very complex and simplify it so that you can actually deliver to it. Work breakdown structure layout. Think of it like an org chart. And I have an example for you. So let me show you. So this is a really good visual of what I was just talking about regarding how a WBS is laid out, like an org chart. So like an org chart, your top level would be your CEO or your president, as we have here. But for the WBS, it's actually the project goal. It could be a deliverable, a department. You can break it up whatever you want, but it's really ultimately, if you were to complete everything, what is it that you're delivering? And that's what would be in that particular area. Now, you would break it down just like an org chart. You have your president, and then you have your VPs or your directors, and it's the same thing here. Your level 2 would be major activities. So whatever that deliverable may be or department activity, you would break out the major activities. I like to call them the really large buckets. And then you go down to level 3. So these are either milestone activities within that major one. They could be even a further breakdown of activities. And last but not least, you have your level 4. Those individuals, if you really were to compare it to an org chart, it would be those who were the doers. It's the tasks, it's the orientation. So that's what your level 4 would be. So when you have a project, really break it down in this manner. It's a super easy way to get a handle on the amount of work you have to do and to truly understand if you have your scope correct, your timing correct, etc. So really break things down with your layout in a WBS with level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Work breakdown structure example. So I have an example here for you on a construction project. Okay, so now let's actually take a look at an example, because when you see it, as you can see what I have in front of you right now, it really makes a lot of sense. So that level 1, what is our deliverable? It's building a house. Now you can only imagine how complex this can be. So what are our level 2s? Well, with this particular way it was broken up, it was in design, structural, utilities, finishing. And now this is where the level 3, there's even more you could break down within that level 2. And so if you take a look, for example, with design, decide on your plans, make changes. Let's take a look at some utilities. So you have your plumbing and your electrical and your HVAC. Now, one more level that is not shown here is your level 4s. So underneath plumbing, you're going to have tons of tasks just to get all the plumbing. One would be take a look at your plan and get a list of all your plumbing materials, go to the store or put in the order for your plumbing materials, pick up the order from the plumbing materials, schedule in your plumbers in order to put in the material. Do you see what I mean? There's a lot that you can do here. But it just shows you how you can break things down, as I like to say, in manageable chunks. Other cool things about a work breakdown structure. All right, the first thing is you can take this structure that you just created and translate it into an action plan. It is an amazing tool and technique to do this and actually pull out all your action items. So something that I highly recommend that you do. Another cool thing about WBS is it actually can bring accountability to your team members, because this is something that you should be doing with them. And last but not least, use it as an activity, creating and finalizing your WBS, particularly if you create it into a project plan, at your kickoff meeting. So cool, this tool. It is so important to project management because you use it throughout the life cycle of a project. Now that you understand all about work breakdown structures, it is time to go even deeper into your understanding of project management, and that is this: why projects fail. You need to ensure that this does not happen. So go to the link below and grab this document. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, share it with all the people that you know. Tell me, are you more confident now in creating a WBS? I'd love to hear from you. Please put it in the comments below. Until the next video, see ya. Are you confused?
Right now, the organizational breakdown structure, or OBS, establishes accountability. What is an OBS? We have a definition here and a purpose. Organizational structure.
Organizational structure. Organizational structure influences the authority of the project manager and influence that how projects are conducted. All organizations are structured in one of three ways: functional, projectized, or matrix. Matrix organization structure is further divided into three types: strong matrix, balanced matrix, and weak matrix. Project manager authority and organizational structures. In a functional organization, project authority rests with a functional manager. In any projectized organization, it rests with a project manager. A matrix organization tries to be somewhere in between these two. In a strong matrix, the authority is with a project manager, just like in a projectized organization. In a weak matrix, the authority is with a functional manager, just like in a functional organization. And in a balanced matrix, the authority over the project is shared by both the functional manager and the project manager. Now, let us understand the functional organization. A functional organization structure is a hierarchical type of organizational structure, wherein people are grouped as per their area of specialization and supervised by the functional manager with expertise in the same field. This way, their skills can be effectively utilized, and the organization's objective can be achieved. The functional organizational structure is suitable for an organization which has ongoing operations, such as manufacturing and production. In functional organization is divided into various specific departments, like human resource, marketing, finance, and operations. The below figure represents a classic functional organization, where each employee has one clear superior. Grouping occurs from top level down to the bottom level, for example, accounting, engineering, or marketing. Project work of each group is performed independently from other groups. Now, let us see the advantages and disadvantages of a functional organization. Its advantages are as follows. It is a stable organization structure. Employees have a career growth path with separation of functions. Employees have one supervisor with a clear chain of command. Disadvantages of functional organization are as follows. Project manager has little to no formal authority. Multiple projects compete for limited resources and priority, and project team members will likely to remain loyal to their functional manager. Projectized organizations. Projectized organizations are nearly the opposite of functional organizations. The focus of this type of organization is the project itself. The idea behind a projectized organization is to develop loyalty to the project, not to a functional manager. In a projectized organization, the project manager has all the power and authority, and everybody directly reports to the project manager. The following figure illustrates a projectized organization. Team members are often collocated. Team resources can either report directly to the project manager or provide support services to the various projects. And project managers almost always have ultimate authority over the project in this structure and report directly to the Chief Executive Officer. Now, let us see the advantages and disadvantages of a projectized organization. Its advantages are as follows. It has a clear line of authority, strong communications with a single reporting system, and flexibility in trade-offs and fast decision-making. The disadvantages of projectized organizations are as follows. Authority and power can make the project manager arrogant. The work environment can be stressful because there is always a deadline. If the project gets elongated, the cost of employees and equipment can go higher. Let's understand the matrix organizations. Matrix organizations came about to minimize the differences between, take advantage of the strengths, and reduce weaknesses of the functional and projectized organizations. The best of both organizational structures can be realized by combining them into one. Employees in a matrix organization report to one functional manager and to at least one project manager. A matrix organization structure is further divided into three types. They are weak matrix, balanced matrix, and strong matrix. Weak matrix. In a weak matrix, the project manager has a part-time role with very limited power and authority. The team members are only assigned to projects for 25% or less of their time. For the rest of the time, they go back to functional assignments. The role of project manager will be more like a coordinator or an expediter. A weak matrix structure is very close to the functional organization structure. The below figure reflects a blend of functional organizations, which is classified as a weak matrix structure. The project expediter works as a staff assistant and communications coordinator, but they do not make or enforce decisions. Project coordinators make some decisions because they have some authority and they report to a higher level manager. Balanced matrix. In a balanced matrix, power is shared between the functional manager and the project manager. Although the project manager has a full-time role, he has only part-time project management administrative staff under him. Up to 60% of the project team in a balanced matrix structure are full-timers. In a balanced matrix structure, the project manager is assigned on a full-time basis. However, support staff are usually part-time rather than being fully dedicated to the project. Strong matrix. In a strong matrix, most authority and power lies with the project manager. The percentage of people on the project team assigned and dedicated to a single project may run as high as 90%. In a strong matrix, the project manager is assigned full-time and has a full-time support staff. However, the support staff still have dual reporting lines, with both their functional managers and the project manager. Following are the advantages and disadvantages of the matrix organization structures. Advantages of matrix organization are as follows. It has highly visible project objectives. It improves project management control over resources. It has more support from functional areas. The disadvantages of a matrix organization are as follows. It requires extra administration. It requires more than one boss for project teams. It is more complex to monitor and control. The influence of project manager in different organizational structures is explained below. In functional organization structure, the project manager has little or no authority and is often a part-time person that has a part-time project management administrative staff. The functional manager manages the project budget. The functional structure is the weakest of all. In a weak matrix, the project manager has limited authority. The role of project manager is part-time. and it may have part-time administrative staff to help expedite the project. The functional manager manages the project budget. In a balanced matrix, the project manager has reasonable authority. The role of a project manager is full-time, who may have part-time administrative staff to help expedite the project. Both functional manager and project manager manages the project budget. In a strong matrix, the project manager has a reasonable to high level of power and manages the project budget. The role of a project manager is full-time, and it has a full-time administrative staff to help expedite the project. In a projectized organization structure, the project manager holds the highest authority and manages the project budget. The project is managed by full-time project manager and administrative staff.
Organizational business structure and accountability. It clarifies responsibilities, it enhances transparency, and it supports performance tracking. Integration with work breakdown structure, or WBS. Tools and responsibility assignment matrix. There's your matrix. Benefits of implementing an OBS. Improved resource allocation, enhanced coordination, and risk mitigation. Steps to develop an effective OBS. Identify your organizational units, define roles and responsibilities, align with the WBS, create RAM or responsibility assignment matrix, and finally, communicate and review.
What is a RACI matrix? No, it is not a parallel universe. It actually is a tool that is used within projects. And in this video, I'm going to share with you what exactly is a RACI and how to use it. RACI overview. RACI is an acronym, and what it stands for is R is responsibility, A is accountability, C is consulted, and I is informed. And basically, it's a matrix, a table that you do for certain tasks and activities, so you know for those specific items who is going to be doing what and for that particular task. Now, you can use it in a couple of ways. A lot of times a RACI is used for a deliverable after a project when you're putting it into the regular business, and people can then have an understanding as these are some core fundamental things and who's going to be responsible, accountable, who has to be consulted and informed on specific tasks. I've also seen RACIs used as high level project plans. Not a personal fan of that. I think you need a detailed plan, as I do in my SLAE project management course with the WBS. I really think you need to go down to detail. RACI doesn't necessarily do that, but it is a good tool for an overview to understand of everything that we have to do, task and responsibility from a maintenance and sustainability perspective, who truly is going to be responsible, who needs to be accountable, who has to be consulted, and who needs to be informed. You know what I have for you. A little later on, I'm going to share with you how to get this, so stay tuned. Okay, now let's go through each letter of the RACI. Responsible. So this category of responsibility is for that particular task or activity that you called out in your matrix. This individual or department is the one that basically has to execute on that task. They're responsible to make it happen. And so that's why you call it out, because they're the individual or the department that is going to be the doer. Accountable. This letter can get confused with the responsibility, which is the R, because they feel so alike. But ultimately, this role is accountable to ensure that the person who's responsible is executing on that role. So they're kind of the buck stops with them. So if there's questions and roadblock removal, It's this particular department or person who has accountability to ensure that it actually comes to fruition, even though they're not the ones responsible doing the activities. So that's the difference between the R and the A. Consulted. When you assign somebody or a department for consulted, basically what you're saying is they have a subject matter expertise. You want to connect with them and consult with them from an insight perspective, from additional information perspective, so that the person who is responsible to executing the task is going to consult with them just to ensure that everything that they're going to be doing has been thought through. So that's the consulted role. Informed. Informed is really simple. You just want to, out of courtesy, inform certain departments or people so they have an understanding as to what is going to be executed by the person who's responsible to execute on that particular task. Because again, they may just have some information that you're not aware of, so you want to inform them just so that everyone is in the loop. RACI matrix layout. It's actually very simple, this matrix, and I highly recommend you do it in Excel. And what you're going to do is your column A, which is the first column, is going to be all of your tasks, activities, anything that you want to call out in your RACI. Now your top row are going to be the individuals or departments that you are going to be identifying in your RACI. And then what you use on the inside is you just call out for that particular activity and that role, and you just go across and down. You're going to give it an R, an A, a C, or an I. So now you may have throughout that row, you may have R's, A, C, and I. Now, a little recommendation here, only have one R. Do not put multiple R's for responsibility. I'll tell you why, because then no one's going to do the work. You should only have one person who's truly responsible for the activity. Everybody else can be consulted and informed, and you can have many C's and many I's. Accountability also is on that same cusp of responsibility. Now with accountability, you may be able to break it out between, let's say, two departments or two key high-level senior executives or individuals, because sometimes those are shared, but really not more than that. So just take note. Yay, you made it to where I'm now talking about this. Guess what? This is so important. It's going to help you be successful in projects, and it's for you, free. And how do you get it? Go under this video, there's a link. Go check it out. Make sure you check out this next video. It's a step-by-step guide on how to start your projects off right. On that note, if you could like this video, join our community by subscribing. And on that note, I'll see you at the next video.
Process breakdown structure. We actually have 4 types of breakdown structures. This is one of them. Look at the definition and look at its purpose. Components of PBS. Phases, processes, when to use PBS. Process-oriented projects, service-based projects, and complex workflows. And the benefits: clear understanding, assigning responsibility, identifying redundancies, and monitoring. And we said we had 4 types of breakdown structures. We have the product, the work, the resource, and organization. Product. Definition. Work breakdown. Your definition. Your resource breakdown structure. Definition. And finally, into shape before already. There it is. Your organizational breakdown structure and its definition. And now we can watch this video.
In this video, I'll be comparing your different breakdown structures. That's going to be the product breakdown structure, the work breakdown structure, resource breakdown structure, as well as your organizational breakdown structure. And I'll also be showing you an example of each one of these breakdown structures. So let's start off with our product breakdown structure. Now, the product breakdown structure is used to break down our final product into its different components or deliverables. It will also help us to define the scope of the project and ensure that all the necessary components of the project are produced. The product breakdown structure can also be used as an input for the work breakdown structure to help us to define the work required to create each one of the components. So let's have a look at an example. Now, the example is building a house. The different components of building the house might be the house structure with the foundation, external walls, and roof. The interior of the house with the flooring, internal walls, and ceiling. Exterior might be windows and doors, and utilities might be electrical and plumbing. Now, secondly, let's have a look at our work breakdown structure. So the work breakdown structure breaks down all the work required to create a product or service. It helps us to plan, schedule, and estimate the project cost and resources for our project. And important, the lowest level of the work breakdown structure is called a work package. And the work breakdown structure can be linked to the product breakdown structure to show how the work contributes to the final product or service. And it can also be linked to the organizational breakdown structure to assign the different teams to the work packages. Now let's have a look at an example again on building a house. We might have the foundation work that needs to be done with excavation and pouring concrete. External works, constructing the walls, installing the roof trusses, and installing windows and doors. Interior work might be painting of the walls, installation of flooring, and installation of fixtures. And then utility installations might be electrical wiring or plumbing installation. Also important that the work breakdown structure does have different levels. And in this case, we've got a level 1, which is our project that's building a house. And we've got a second and third layer in this example. Now, thirdly, our resource breakdown structure that identifies all the resources that's needed to complete a product or service. That can be people, equipment, and material. And it helps us to manage and allocate that resource effectively on our project. And the resource breakdown structure can also be linked to our work breakdown structure to show which resources are needed for each one of the work packages in the work breakdown structure. So let's have a look at an example. Again, on building a house, we might have our labor, material, and equipment resources. Under labor, we might have bricklayers, carpenters, electricians, and plumbers. Material might be bricks, cement, building sand, paint. And then equipment can be an excavator, scaffolding, or power tools. Now, lastly, let's have a look at our organizational breakdown structure. This describes the team responsible for delivering a project, or it can describe the entire organization. And I'll show you these two examples now. The organizational breakdown structure breaks down the team into individual roles or into the organizational departments and sections. We'll have a look at those two examples. The organizational breakdown structure helps us to assign accountability and responsibility for our different project work packages and tasks. And it can also be linked to the work breakdown structure to show which teams are responsible for which work packages in our work breakdown structure. So let's have a look at the two examples. First of all, your organizational breakdown structure on project level. We might have a project management team with a project manager and assistant project manager, construction team with a construction manager, site foreman, and tradesman, as well as a procurement team. Now, secondly, our organizational breakdown structure on a company level. We start off with our CEO or owner, and there can be a financial department, an IT department, project management department with project managers and assistant project managers, construction department with our different construction managers, site foremen and tradesmen, as well as a procurement department. I hope this video assisted you to better understand the different breakdown structures. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, or you can subscribe to my channel for more project management related videos.
And then we're moving into chapter 8. I'll be creating a separate video for this. So you can see what's going to happen and the objectives. We're going to stop this recording for now and get ready to present chapter 8.